Diego Cordovez.
Adam Schoenfeld.
Thanks for joining us on The Scoop.
Scoop.
Brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. Billy Baxter has been a phenomenal guest, and unprecedentedly, here he is for part 4.
It was all good, but I want to draw the line. This will be the last one.
All right. First 3 episodes are on Card Player TV. One last subject is that people may not know is, for a while you were a boxing manager in addition to all your other gambling endeavors, and you managed several world champions. And for people that watch HBO 24/7 and Floyd Mayweather, his manager is his uncle Roger Mayweather, who's quite a character himself.
And he was my fighter.
And he was He was you were his manager.
Right.
And for a while, I mean, all the way as he climbed the ranks. Now he seems like quite a personality when they show him on TV. What was he like then, or what? Was
well, you know what? He
then?
was like a loose cannon. He was really talented.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Stu Younger,
he was another talent, and he proved that. And I recognized it. See, the way I got into boxing was through my gambling. Mm-hmm. I would go around the gym scouting to see who I'm gonna bet on, and this, that, and the other. Because I was known to make some big bets on boxing back in those days.
I've heard.
And in fact, I don't know if you know this, but I actually got accused of fixing the Marvin Hagler Sugar Ray Leonard fight.
Because he had so much bet on it?
My picture was on the front page of the Las Vegas Sun the day after the fight.
I didn't know this.
Yes. Las Vegas gambler suspected of fixing Hagler Leonard fight, and it's the day after the fight. I went to the fight, and I went out in my driveway the next morning. I thought it was one of them, them goofy newspapers.
Joke.
People just a joke newspaper. I pick it up, my picture's on the front page.
That's astounding.
And it was a long story what happened, and it was just the most ridiculous thing. It never was anything in it that was truth, but it just shows you how things can come about that I don't know if you want to take time to even hear part of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But because it's kind of, well, what happened was this. I was friend of this guy, Mike Trainer, who was Leonard's manager.
Yeah, I remember that.
His lawyer.
Yeah, he was his lawyer, his attorney. And he called me and wanted me, said, when we come to town, we're going to be there for a month for the fight. Would you help us get a house? So I called a real estate lady, put them in touch with him. So I arranged for Leonard's quarters, so to speak, for the month he was going to be there. Now, also, Roger was fighting in Pernell Whitaker back in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and we went back there for the fight. And it was Roger was the NABF champion at the time, and Sweet Pea was just kind of coming up. And so anyway, we went back there for this fight. So I insisted on getting some neutral judges. So they had one,
Imagine that.
one from back there, another one from here, and then they brought one from here.
Right.
So the local judge from here went, which we didn't go. We went on a different plane. So we get back there and we go to the fight. And to make a long story short, show you how things can happen, he voted against Roger, lost a unanimous decision, which he did. We were satisfied with that. We go to the airport the next day. We got our kicked. We were getting on the plane, heading home, but we got the check with us anyway.
Right.
So
for the purse.
So now the judge comes up to me, and he says, "Hi, Billy," and he introduced himself, and he said, "I'm sorry about the fight." I said, "Well, he didn't fight well enough. That's just another day. What can you say? We got beat."
No hard feelings.
That's right. So then he says, "Well, you know what? I'm thinking about going in the boxing business, promoting business in Las Vegas." He says, "What do you think about that?" And I says, "Well, I used to love to go to those fights at the Silver Slipper. I think if somebody started back doing that again, they could do well, And I says, I got 3 or 4 fighters now. I said, if you ever want to use any of my guys, feel free to call me. Meaning just make us an offer. We'll might fight. Just being nice, actually. So now we go back to Las Vegas. His name was Dave Moretti, incidentally.
He's another one guy.
He's dead. He judges fights still today, but he was on probation there for a while with this thing with me. I wasn't allowed to judge. So now we come back. So what he does, people named him. He goes around town, and he says, "You know what? I'm thinking about start doing some fights and all, and Billy Baxter's going to help me, blah, 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 this, that, and the other." Just dropping names, so to speak. All right, nope, nothing with that. So now, Here comes along the Hagler Leonard fight. I help out with this. Now, I loved Leonard in this fight. He was getting 325 to 1, and I bet like 200,000. So it paid like 600,000 or 700,000,
right?
Which is not a giant bet, but it's a pretty good bet on over a 3 to 1 dog. It is anyway.
Yeah.
That's all the money I actually bet. Which some people would figure that's a lot, but when you start talking about fixing a fight of that magnitude,
of course,
it's not that big.
The purses are millions of dollars.
Yeah,
so
purses are millions of dollars.
Right. You're not going to risk your entire.
Well, that's just to show you how far off they are. This is my wife. I got 3 kids, and I'll say this to this day. I hope my kids all die. Every word I tell you is not true. So now I make this big bet on the fight and this, that, and the other. Now, Bob Arum is the promoter, and he's got Hagler. And Leonard is like kind of more popular than Hagler, but Hagler is champion.
Yep.
And Leonard always and trainer, they never would let Arum promote their fights. They did their own.
Right.
So anyway, the fight takes place at Caesar's Palace. It's a close fight. Leonard wins the decision. Okay? Now, during this course of the evening, Arum hears over there that Dave Moretti, who is one of the judges, is telling people that him and Billy Baxter are going in business together.
Right.
Arum jumps out of his seat, says, and at the time he's writing a column. I had a big lawsuit, but I didn't do it. I look back, I should have, but I didn't. Anyway, he jumps out of his seat, says, "That's it. That's what happened. Baxter fixed the fight."
Right.
Now, this is after the fact. He knows he can't promote the rematch because he knows Leonard and them, if they fight, they're going to promote it.
Right, they're going to shut him out.
They're going to shut him out. He gets in his car. He's writing a column every Sunday on boxing. Goes straight to the Sun. That's how fast fight going to get over to like 10 o'clock at night. They go to presses at 12:31. It's in my lawn. On my lawn at 7 o'clock the next morning. Picture and all.
Yeah, he put it all together.
He put it all together that the fight was fixed, and he got this guy to write it. That's how this fight got fixed. So now the attorney general, I wake up Monday morning, I'm livid. I don't even know what this is about. I haven't done nothing.
Right.
I called down there. The attorney says, "Billy, what can I do to help you?" I know. He says, I said, "Well, I want to know what the hell this is in this newspaper. What's going on here?" He said, "Well, there's some allegations that you had something to do with the outcome of the Hagler fight." I said, "Allegations?" I said, "What the hell is going on here?" And he says, "Well, you want to come down and talk to me about it?" I said, "Well, I sure do." I got in my car, I went straight down there. Went in. His name was John Redland.
This is Attorney General, the prosecutor?
Right here, yeah. So I go down, and he told me off the record what happened. After I explained it to him, I said, I'm going to explain some things to you. I said, number one, if I was going to fix this fight, I never would have fixed it the way this claiming it was fixed. I said, number one, everybody thought Hagler was going to be too big, too rough, and beat him up and knock him out. I said, so I know Hagler's going to be standing at the end of 15 rounds. So if I'm going to fix the fight, I'm going to fix it for Hagler, not for Leonard, because I know he's going to be standing on his feet. Right. I ain't got no guarantee that Leonard's going to be standing on his feet to win. I said, so anybody that really knows anything of, I'm talking just like my rate. I said, anybody that knows anything about boxing knows it take an idiot to fix the fight for Leonard. I mean, if you're going to fix it where you know you're going to win.
Right.
So now he looks at me, and that made a little sense and all, to him. And so anyway, he finally said, well, I said, well, how did this get it? And he said, between me and you, it was Bob Arum. So now, he said it just like that, kind of under his breath, like he was telling me something he wasn't supposed to tell me. So now it goes on, and I call Brian Greenspun.
He's the publisher of the Sun.
Yes, and I was friendly with Brian. I told Brian, I said, well, I don't know how this got in your pay. He said, Billy, I don't either. I'm home in bed asleep. He says, I don't know nothing about this.
He knew this was a bad thing.
And I said, well, this is a very malicious story. And I said, I know how I got in there. Your man, Bob Arum, put it in there because he knew that he wouldn't get to promote the next fight, so he put it in for money, to gain money. He thought that if they declared this fight void or whatever, he could do it all over again and make another 25 million. And this was all kind of going. He says, "Well, I just don't know, Billy." So anyway, they went on. They subpoenaed the other judges, referee, everybody come before the attorney general and all. The other two judges said, "I never heard of Billy Baxter." They were from other countries and all. I said, "Well," and then I said, "Yeah, another thing. If I had bribed this guy, what am I going to do about these other two judges?"
At least two of them, right?
I mean, you got to have two, not one. One don't get it. I said, so it's pretty damn obvious this is all bull. I mean, I was just livid. You know, I mean, you got kids, this, that, and the other.
You're a gambler. You have a reputation.
So, anyway, I told Brian, I said, well, whenever this gets resolved, and it will get resolved, if this, I'm going to tell you right now, and you're a friend of mine, if I don't get a retraction on, not in the back cover, on the front page of this newspaper, then I'm going to file a lawsuit. And he said, well, we'll see how it shakes out. But well, sure enough, when the Attorney General and them wrote their opinion, it was all just, there was nothing to it. There was nothing was substantiated. And Moretti come in, the judge himself, told him, so, well, this is what happened. I mean, you know, I
had a conversation with him.
I had a conversation with the guy, and I dropped his name around. That's all I ever did, you know. So he got back, and that was the end of the story. But I look back, I should have sued Bob Air because he was the one that was, but it was, the damage was, I mean, you know, like people, you know, I mean, I think I had a good lawsuit. Let's put
everyone
it that
knows,
absolutely.
Everyone knows Bob Air was a loose cannon.
Of course.
But see, if it just was a news story reporting, that would be one thing. But that wasn't what it was. He was doing it because he could make some more money if he could get that.
If they declared a no contest,
now he's the promoter again.
Fight. So is this related to your getting out of boxing eventually? Or
well, I went on, and with the fighters and the aggravation and all, I finally said, you know what, I'm done with the boxing. And Roger, they actually, his brother, who's the dad, called me when he was in prison to ask me if I would handle little Floyd. And I'll show you, I made another great decision in life. I turned him down. I said, no, I tell you what, I'm done with the boxing, Floyd, but I appreciate it.
I mean, it might have been a lot better for Floyd Jr. money. If you
well, he might still have some of the money he's been throwing away, I can tell you that.
Right. But your relationship with Roger, was that similar to Stewie in the sense of just frustrating?
Roger comes by my house even now, to this day, every now and then, and all, you know. And I made Roger, when he made $1,250,000 against Chavez, I took him, put it in an irrevocable trust where he could never get them. He gets a check every month and stuff like that. So I had a good history with the Mayweather family, which is the reason his dad asked me to handle. But I was done. I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Boxing's
I said, you know, I don't need to.
Yeah, boxing is just too
it's a rough business.
Too crazy.
It was a rough business. It is, you know. But I had good. But one thing I say, this goes back to my gambling. It sounds like you're bragging a little bit, but. I never had nothing but like world champions, and it was like I have, like with sports, I have a knack for picking who can win. Like you can beat him or he can beat you. And fighters, the same sort of thing. And I had Roger Mayweather, had Bruce Curry, who was world champion, and I had Vernon Forrest, who beat Shane Mosley twice.
That's a shame what happened to him.
So that was, I had like 3 fighters, they were all world champions.
Did you, I forget the specifics, but when Mike Tyson got beat by Buster Douglas, it was the biggest line ever. There'll never be one as big because people have realized how insane
I have a little story with that.
Well, that's what I was leading into.
I was playing poker at Caesar's Palace. Tommy Fisher was at the table, and he threw me, it was not a big bet. I think he threw 2,000 over there. It was 35 to 1, like 38 to 1, 35 to 1. And he threw me 2,000, and I put it on my stack. And I says, 30. I said, for some reason, I don't know why, normally I said, I don't want to win that stinking 2,000. I threw it back to him.
Risk 70,000.
And the rest, you know what happened? He beat him. Beat him up bad. I've seen tapes of that fight since then. He took a real licking that night.
It closed some places at like 42 to 1. And people realized that no one's ever really a 42 to 1.
No, because the other guy could have a heart attack.
Anything
yeah.
can happen. So, and some people got hurt on that.
Right.
And you avoided it by.
Well, I was just.
You had
I mean,
the bet-
no,
you
I
had
don't
it-
need. To this day, I don't know. Other than I just said, I don't need to.
You had it in your stack.
Yeah, I actually put it in my stack to start
Yeah,
with.
you told me that once.
That's
I
awesome.
remember. So, Adam was a World Poker Tour final tableist, and
I outplayed
should have
Billy.
won.
I
Should have won.
outplayed Billy
Should have
the
won.
key
down
hand.
He did.
counters. And kind of a running joke between us is about every month or two, I call up Adam and I tell him that you've called me at my house and that you're still complaining about a hand between you guys, which is just a joke that Adam knows. But you guys did actually have one big hand, but also a whole series of.
I'm very interested to hear Billy's perspective.
Of what happened?
Yeah.
I know exactly what happened.
Right.
Go ahead.
You know what? To me, it's
I
not.
heard
You know,
Adam's
everybody has bad beat stories.
Right.
So that's to me is not. You know, this is just another bad beat story. Who gives a damn about a
Right.
bad beat story? But what I think makes this story interesting is what happened before. We were playing at the Commerce Casino.
Right.
It was the World Poker Tour event.
Yeah, the main-
it was about
the-
three. It was the main event about three or 4 years.
It was 5 years ago. It was
Okay,
04.
5. Yes, shows you how.
And this is
long-
when World Poker Tour was a very important. It was huge
Right,
back then.
right. Everybody was playing. There was
Right.
probably 700-800 players entered that tournament that year. Anyway, we got down to the last 8, and not only was it was a pretty credible field, I thought. David Benjamin had just went out. We had Antonio Estefati, who actually wound up winning the tournament.
David Benjamin was still in, but
Right.
someone
Okay,
else
this
had, yeah.
time. Okay, Adam Schoenfeld, Vinny Vin,
Right.
J.C. Tran,
Correct.
Right.
myself. This was the
Yeah, all
last mix at the
legit
end, so
players.
it was a pretty tough field.
And
getting
final
right
6
down.
are.
And we're
the TV
and we're
table and the
playing
whole
for a
thing.
long time trying
And
to
we've
get to the
been
final
playing
6.
a long time. We were down to 8 players. We're trying to get to 6 for the final table. And this hand comes out, and I had gotten a whole pretty good chip stack. I think I had 600,000 or 700,000. Adam had 6 or 7, maybe a little bit less because I wound up with a few chips after
Yeah.
the hand I'm going to tell you about later. So, Casey Castle actually had a lot of chips, and he was at the table. And to make a long story short, I'm going to tell this part of the story first because it's what, to me, makes the other part of the story
Right.
interesting. A hand comes up where Casey opens a pot
Mhm.
right under the gun. And the man right on his left raises him like, let's say 55,000.
Mhm.
No, he moved all in
Moves
for
in.
his whole stack, like
Yeah,
175,000.
that's right.
Okay.
J.C. Tran had a few dollars less than that, maybe 150 to 165 left, but the rest of his stack. Now he sweats his hand there and this, that, and the other. And to make a long story short, the reason this is important is because this is will tell you that he don't have 2 aces.
Right.
Okay.
He sweated and sweated and sweated, and now he finally gets up and he talks to a couple of his friends in the stands and all, you know, and he comes back and you can tell he's really agonizing about this
Yeah.
hand. I mean, the reason I'm making this point because now if he comes back and plays this hand, he's got 2 aces. You want to take him outside.
Right.
Let's put it that way.
And that's
This
not really-
is the
that's
all-time slow roll. He
That's
comes
That's
over-
not even
yeah, that's
JC's
not
style.
JC's
you understand what I'm
style.
saying?
Yeah.
I mean, so now he finally sits back down and he says, all right, I'm all in.
Yeah.
Okay?
And JC's a pro. That's not his.
Right. I mean, you don't do all that when you got 2
No.
aces. Get up and walk out the room
Make a
and
whole show
everything
out of
else.
it.
You know what I mean?
And the other guy's already all in too. So I mean.
So anyway, he had this agonizing decision. So
Folds
now,
back to Casey. Yeah,
now
sorry.
it comes back to Casey Castle, and he sits there a minute, and then he turns his 2 cards face up where everybody could see them, and he says, "Now he's got all these
He's got them
guys
covered.
covered,
Right.
way covered."
Right.
He says, he sits there, he wants to show everybody how smart he is. He says, ain't no way these 2 kings can be no good. And he throws them in the muck.
Right.
Okay, so now they turn the cards up. The first guy had 2 queens.
Right.
JC
He's
had
gotta
2
have
queens.
2 queens. Right.
Well, needless to say, Casey didn't win the pot. It bust 2 players, and we would have
We
went
would've
home,
done, right.
which
Right.
makes the story. It would be 6-handed, and we'd have had a final table.
We should have been in bed.
Right.
never
So
would've
instead
had-
of going to bed, then I'm going to tell you how I get in the picture.
Right.
So about a half hour later, we can't never get out. We can't get down to these 6 players. Vinny Vin opens right on my right. I'm on the butt.
Yep.
He opens for 55,000. I remember the exact numbers. He opens for 55,000, and I wanted a little action. You know, I'm not trying to because I had enough. He had like 3 something left,
Mhm.
about 300 in
He's
front
an
of him.
action
I think.
guy.
So I rated play for like 175, I think, something in that neighborhood.
Sounds
Adam
right.
could correct me.
Sounds about right.
And now all of a sudden, this guy on my left, this Adam Schoenfeld, who's sitting, he's got quite a few chips. I mean, enough to where a guy would make you lay it down. I think he must have had $500,000 or something.
Yeah, that's about right.
So now he stands up behind his chair,
Right.
and he says, "I'm all in."
I don't recall standing, but okay.
With your,
Okay,
with your
but I mean, like,
Yeah, no.
you know, well, something to that effect.
Yeah.
So now it comes back to Vinny, who happened to have had 2 jacks. I would have broke him in this hand.
Right.
But anyway, Vinny. So now Vinny folds the 2 jacks.
Because you got 2 aces.
And I said, well, naturally, I got to call it. I got to call it, Adam. So I had finally picked up 2 aces on the button.
Right.
And of course, I had 2 aces. Adam had 2 nines. And if I remember right, the flop come 6, 8, 10. Is that right? Because I know you caught a 7.
6, 8, yeah, 6, 8, 10 is correct.
Because you caught a 7.
That's right. And then, because I remember Edwin at the
He
time
had
was
6,
yelling
8, 10
7.
with 2 nines. And naturally caught a 7.
Right on the
which made
turn.
him astray, yeah.
And then he did a dance.
No.
Well, no, he didn't do any dancing.
Come on.
But he was glad to win, and it was just so. Anyway, of course, I got broke a few minutes later. That put me on tilt.
Right.
But even
The whole combination, though.
but anyway, what the point what I thought made it an interesting story was not the bad beat, but the fact that we would have already went home
Right.
in case Castle just said I call with 2
Right.
kings.
It never would have come up in the first
You know, I'll
place.
just quickly add that Vinny had been opening everything. He'd
Right.
opened King Deuce. Now this time it turns out he
There's
had
nothing wrong with what you did.
No, no. And I had a few times come over. I thought Billy was isolating Vinny a lot, which he was.
Right.
And then I'd just come over and
Right.
it would work.
Yeah.
So
And it would have if I didn't have what I had.
I should have thought to the next step, which is eventually Billy's going to have something, and
Yeah.
he did.
Partly just bad like that. See, the
but
way I tell the story.
I
is
will say
always-
that the one part that I think you remember incorrectly is that I did not stand, and I certainly did not celebrate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Well, he
I was
didn't do that.
joking
No, I
about
don't
that.
remember
Yeah,
him
yeah.
celebrating at
Yeah.
all.
I was just
I stood
joking
there
about
quiet.
that. When I tell the story, that
He
you were
claims that,
like
yeah.
the 4th man in, and that then Adam came over the top.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
not
that's
fair.
an
That was the
outrage.
way I told it. It was too low. Because I remember he was in the little blind. He was sitting
Yeah, yeah,
right
that's
next to me.
definitely true.
Yeah, no, it's just a normal.
Yeah.
But it was just, you know,
But
there's
it's
nothing
always
wrong
fun.
with what he did. It just he ran into 2
Yeah,
aces,
right,
and then I
right.
ran into something worse than that.
Yeah.
And Vinny ends up escaping.
Yeah,
And he
he
finished
ends
second.
up. He would have called me if he don't
Right.
come
Yeah.
in. He's gonna
He
go
should
off
be
for
out
his
and-
300.
He should be out. Instead, he finishes runner-up in the entire
Second,
tournament.
right. Yeah.
And it all begins with Casey's laydown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Billy, it's been a pleasure. You're
All right.
a real gambler's gambler.
Okay, well, thank
and
you.
a hero
That's
to,
awesome, Billy.
All right, thank you.
to any
Appreciate
gambler in
it.
Las Vegas. So we appreciate you coming by.
All right.
Hold your seat for a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
You all right?
Yeah, we're just gonna. Yeah, it's good.
Thanks for joining us on The Scoop.
All right.
Full Tilt Poker. It's all right.
Yeah.
Write to us at thescoop@cardplayer.com. Billy's a busy man.
Yeah, I know he's gotta
I
go.
can't wait for that outro.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We're
That's
okay.
cool.